Hey, this is Danny from Allans Hyde in Melbourne. I'm from the Blackburn store and I'm here in Sydney with the Roland guys. This is Simon, and we're looking at the sample pad, the SPD-SX. It's pretty awesome. I know there's some set samples already on that, but say for example I was in a cover band and I wanted to get like the specific sound or some specific song, or just some classic drum sound. How might I go about doing that?
Well, you can either get it from your computer and drop it onto the SPD-SX. It comes with wave management software that lets you drag and drop your samples from your hard disk, or you can actually just record them in, which is the fun way to do it. So I've got an iPad here connected. I'm going to play back a track and just grab a bit of the drum sound, which I really like, and sample it. Then we're going to put it onto the kit and I'll show you how to stick it on the triggers.
Cool.
Okay?
Nice.
So the first step is to connect the output of your device to the audio inputs on the back of the sample pad. There's a mic in, but there's also line inputs as well. So we're connected to the line inputs. The mic in, we can use any microphone we want to record in. We can even use a pair of headphones as a microphone if you wanted to, and plug it in the back, stick it up next to your favorite snare and record that. Today I'm just going to grab a sample from my iPad. So I'm going to hit sampling pad, hit the sampling button, and it goes into a basic sampling page which is called basic. So I'm going to hit enter there. And now it's ready to go. We put it into standby. I play back the part that I want to record, and then I just hit start when want to start recording, and then hit stop at the end of it. So here we go. Start recording, play back the track. Okay, so we've got our audio recorded in now. I don't need the iPad anymore. I've got my sample. And you hit. There's my sound. So I want to actually trim it so that I have just the kick drum and just the snare drum. So with this, because I want kick and snare, I'll just go and trim first kick and snare without any of the other parts after it. So the great thing about the sample pad is I have a waveform editor on the front screen. So I can zoom in on my waveform, I can zoom out right down to sample accuracy, and I can press the start button, and now I'm just going to trim the start. So I don't want any of that silence at the start. And the silence was caused between the gap from hitting record and then hitting play on my iPad. So I want to have it so it's nice and tight. I want to be able to hit the snare and have it trigger as soon as I hit the snare.
Yeah.
So I can zoom right in on my waveform, and I can see there right down to sample accuracy exactly where the start of the sample is. Now you don't want to have it so that you start on the spike, because I'll be missing the juicy part of the bass drum, because the bass drum sound is the beater hitting the head starts to resonate, and then you hear the sound of the drum. So I actually want that little bit before it, because that's actually when the beater strikes. So this is really important, because if you trim it right on the spike, you end up with something that sounds a little bit too late. You don't get that initial breathy woomph as the beater comes to hit the bass drum. So it's something you get really fast at doing once you've had a bit of a play around with it. But this is what I want here. I want just that bass drum there. And you can hear that. Now, I've got here a kick and a snare in really quick succession, so I might actually want to trim it so that I use one of the other bass drums from further on. Let's have a listen again. One of these ones, because they're more isolated. So I'm going to go and move the start point. Instead of being right at the very start, I'm going to go and move it along until I find one of these bigger, juicier bass drum sounds. So there's part of the snare waveform. Here's my next one coming up here, which is snare hit. And if I zoom along a bit further, I can zoom right out and see, there's one of the bass drums. So I can zoom in on that, and I want to make sure I don't trim any of the start of it. I just want to have a nice spiky bass drum. There it is, and I'll trim it up a little bit more. And that should be about ready to go. So there's my bass drum. So now I have the start of it trimmed up, but I want the end of it to be nice and clean, because I just want the bass drum sound. So I'm going to trim the end of it. And again, I'm going to zoom right out. I can see my whole sample there. I'm going to move across until I get to the end of the sample that I want, and I'm going to have a listen. So I've got two bass drums there. Okay, so I need to go a little bit further because I don't want the second bass drum. I just want the first one. So we come along. There's my two bass drums. Now I've got just one, and I'm going to go as far as I can without the next one starting. So I want to have the very end of the bass drum as well, so I get all of the air and reverb or whatever other sounds in the recording. But I don't want the next one to start. So if I trim it up too late, I end up with this. Hear the click at the end? So I want to trim it so that it's There's my bass drum sound. So then when I'm done, I just hit enter. It saves it into a pad. Let's call it sample number 228 because I've got 227 samples in there. That was the 228th one. And now I've just picked any kit. At the moment, I've got nothing assigned to it. So what I want to do is go into my pad settings and I want to assign that sample. So it's number 228. So I go through my list of samples and there it is, 228. There's my bass drum.
That's
Okay.
awesome.
What I can do is I can make it monophonic. So it means it only plays one bass drum at a time. I often don't want two bass drum sounds happen at the same time because that's not how a real bass drum works. It's a monophonic instrument. Unless you've got 2 feet hitting 2 beaters, it'll be a single hit at a time. Okay, so once I've trimmed my bass drum up, I have it now. And I've done the same with the snare drum. I've just gone through and highlighted that section of the snare and I've created a new wave out of it. So in my memory in here, I've got 3.5 hours of sample time.
Cool.
So we've only used a fraction because we've only used a split second of sampling time. We have now our kick and our snare assigned to the kit. Now, if I play exactly the groove from that original recording, it sounds just like. And there's my sound. So it's pretty
Very
straightforward. You just basically find what it is you want to record it into the sample pad, edit it up so it's nice and tight, and then you just assign it to any of the pads in any of the kits in here. So I could save that kit now with a new name, call it my favorite kit or whatever you want to call it, and it's saved there forever. You've got hours of recording time. You can save all your samples onto USB, export them to your computer, and vice versa, the other way around. And it's just a fantastic instrument.
So if you're on the go, you can really make a great set in a matter of minutes.
Absolutely, you can customize all of the kits, put them in any order that you like. You might be on stage in a sound check and you might want to stick a mic on the guitar amp and record some feedback, or you might want to record a bit of the sound check into it to use at the start of the gig.
Yeah.
So you can have and then the whole band comes in, so you can grab snippets of your own playing on stage to use as part of your gig. It's very straightforward. You don't need a computer. All the editing's done on the front panel.
That's
And
fantastic.
It's beautifully clean and quiet. It's a great sounding instrument.
Thanks for showing me that. That was the sampling power of the SPD-SX. I'm Danny from Allans Hyde. Come check them out.